Hello students, I am Amit from RedTeam Hacker Academy, and in this module we'll be going to discuss digital forensics and its basics. And so let's dig into the digital forensics. I'll be discussing these things in our module 1, like introduction to digital forensics, Locard's principle, digital crime classification, and law enforcement initiatives, branches of digital forensics and digital evidence, physical and volatile memory, and your evidence acquisition, right blockers, and how to handle the evidence like the integrity part and the chain of custody and reporting thing like how to prepare report of a particular incident. So let's start with the introduction to digital forensics. So first thing came into mind that what is digital forensics? So digital forensics is defined as a process of preservation, identification, and extraction or documentation of a computer evidence which can be used by court of law, or it is a science of finding evidence from digital media like a computer, mobile phone, server, application, or network, or anything like that which is related to a digital. I mean, it can be IoT based, it can be anything. So it is all about finding evidence from a digital media. So we can say that is the digital forensics. There are 5 phases of digital forensics mainly. I mean, like the first phase is like identification, the identity of purpose of investigation or identify the resource required, and the preservation, the data is isolated, secure, and preserve that evidence, and the analysis like finding these things, processing the data, interpret the analysis results that comes into the analysis, and the documentation part like your, I mean, like how your crime, I mean, documentation of the crime scene along with the photographs, sketching, and crime scene mapping, these kind of things. And presentation is like preparing your reports and how you correlate the things. These kind of things come into the presentation part. So there are basically these 5 phases are important in digital forensics. Let's discuss the process flow of the digital forensics. Like I have discussed the 5 phases of main phases, but this is the process flow of digital forensics. Like the first phase is like identification, like you will identify the computer resource that which is compromised, or which, I mean, some crime is happened against that particular thing. So you'll identify it, and then your main goal is to preserve that. I mean, like no one should tamper that particular evidence or whatever the data is there, so that should not be tampered. So integrity should be maintained all the times. And then you will collect some these like Caesar kind of thing, and taking an image of that thing, collecting a digital clones like that thing. So these kind of things comes under the collection, and then you will examine these things, that how, what details you need to find and how you will find that part will be covered into the analysis thing. And whatever your results and whatever your findings, so you will be present into the your presentation part. So these are the basic process flow of digital forensics. So let's discuss these phases into the further slides. So as I earlier discussed, that first phase is like identification of that particular digital thing or the digital media which is suspected to involve in a digital crime. Like you will identify that the if the crime actor is used a phone, so that phone is your basically your digital media. If some computer is used against any of the crime, so that computer or that laptop, that server, any of the machineries, any of the digital media which is suspectedly involved in a digital crime, so that is your main thing for the identification. You have to identify that thing. let's and then the next part is like preserve this thing. So preserving this thing is like there are, you need to ensure that integrity of that particular data, that particular digital media should be ensure all the times, like no one should tamper, like uh, some computer resource is being used against any of the computer crimes. So some anti-forensic should not be happened against this, some evidence tampering should not be happened against that particular digital media. So that comes into the preservation thing. Then next part is the collection thing. The next phase is known as a collection, like extracting that particular data which is required, or like imaging is can be the part of that, cloning can be the part of that, particular file based acquisition can be the part of that. So extracted that particular thing, and or making a clone of that, making a dd image, raw image, whatever, we'll be going to discuss all these file formats, like how we clone that, how we image that particular hard disk, how we clone that logical volume, physical volume. So we'll be going to discuss these kind of things in the further slides. But yeah, like collection is the third phase, like that you need to extract some of the data to present or to examine against any of the crime, basically. And that next phase is like examination and analysis. So this will cover your all the findings, whatever you have find, and how what are your primary goal is, what you need to find. Like you have some questions like who has done this, why, when did it happen, who used this computer resource, what was the ip of that particular thing. So these kind of analysis, I mean these kind of questions you will find into any of the digital media. So that is common, I mean whatever you are going to examine against a digital media, I mean like what is your questions, that who used that particular computer resource, what was the data size, what file is used, what software is used, what malware is used against any of the computer crime. So this kind of things, if you're gonna cover this thing, like your examination and analysis part. And last phase is like your presentation, I mean like whatever you're finding is it put that into the documentation. Like you may need to be expert testimony against any of the computer crime in the court of law. So you need to present in a way, such a way that that should be admissible into the court of law. So the primary goal is that only. So this was the basics of digital forensics. I mean, what was digital forensics? We have covered in this slide. We'll be going to discuss in some other topics in further slides. Thank you.